Greetings, Fantastic Fives. Good to have you with us today. Today we're going to have a look at doing some graphs, but constructing graphs, bar graphs and histograms, and how we choose. So it's a follow-on from the lesson we did on graphs. So if you haven't done the lesson on bar graphs, perhaps do that one before this video. All right. Normal reminders at the start of a lesson. If you'd like to email me, I am Mr. T or Mr. Travis. You can email me grade5@worksheetcloud.com, and after the lesson, click on that link above, do the worksheet just to make sure that you are able to construct a bar graph or a histogram after this lesson. Also, as per normal, the next slide is going to be mental arithmetic. I've given you a different mix of times tables today, some things to practice. You've got 40 seconds, 10 questions. First prize is to get them all right, and once you've managed to get them all right and you're getting them right regularly, then it's about increasing your speed and being able to do it faster. 40 seconds, start now. And your 40 seconds are up. So it's 10 questions. Let's see how you did. A mixture of the times tables. 6 times 5 is 30. 5 times 6 is 30. I hope you didn't have to work that out, because when you change the order with multiplication, you get the same answer. So if you got one right, you should have got both of them right. For number 3, 7 times 4 is 28. 4 times 9 is 36. 8 times 7 is 56. 9 times 3 is 27, 4 times 8 is 32, 7 times 5 is 35, 3 times 8 is 24, and 3 times 11 is 33. If you missed any of those, just rewind, have a listen again, and make sure you've marked them. Remember, it's always just about improving, so practice makes, well, good practice makes you better, and that's what we're aiming to do. This has become our practice as well, to do some of these at the start of the day. So let's see if you are one of the 7 who will get this right. Just a reminder that for the last line, which is probably where people go wrong, is to make sure that it's bed mass. So you do the order of operations correctly. Also note that there are 2 bananas there and 1 banana there. So this banana would be half of what those 2 bananas are together. I'm going to switch across to my whiteboard while you have a start at that. But if you'd like some more time, just pause the video. I'm going to get going with this one. You can always pause it partway through and carry on once you've reached a step. Let's see. So we always start with a line that has only the same thing. So most of the time it's the first line. So we've got 3 things that are the same that add up to 30. And I think 10 is often one that it is, but 3 10s are 30. So that's what the biscuits are. And we can put that one in. Now you might have picked this up, but possibly not. But have a look at how many dots are on each of those ones at the top and how many dots are on that one. That's probably why only 1 out of 7 people get this right. So this is perhaps not quite as simple as it first looked. But we've got enough to work out the second line. Let's have a look at those bananas. So we've got to get to 14. We've already got 10 in the form of the cookie. So now we need to see what are these two together. The 2 bananas are coming to 4 to make up 14. We split that and we get 2. So those 2 bananas are 2 and those 2 bananas are 2. Which means that we can put that one in there. And if 2 bananas is worth 2, we can assume that 1 banana is worth 1. Let's have a look at the, I don't know what that is. Whatever that is, let's have a look. So 2 plus something comes to 8. We've got to get 2 somethings that together come to 6, which is what we still need to get to 8. So sharing that equally, we get 3 and 3, so we can put 3 over there. It might be a clock. I think it is a clock actually, but let's assume that it's not, and let's assume that's the same. Yeah, I think it's a clock, and it points to 3 in each of these ones, but only to 2 in the next one, but it's a bit blurry, so let's accept that it's the same. Right, let's have a quick look at that current biscuit again, or chocolate chip biscuit. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So the top ones each have 10 chocolate chips in, and this one has 7 chocolate chips in, so that one will only be worth 7. So reminding ourselves that it's bed mass, meaning that's our order of operations. So first of those we have is multiplication, so that's the step we're going to do first. So 1 times 7 is 7. That's what that's worth. Now it's just plus, we work from left to right, so 3 plus 1 is 4, plus 7 is 11. So our final answer is 11. I hope you got that. If not, don't stress, these things take practice. Okay, so on to today's lesson, which is looking at constructing bar graphs and histograms. So we're going to remind ourselves what the difference is, and we're going to just practice looking at some of the important elements. Okay, so our lesson goals: be able to construct a bar graph or a histogram from given information, and be careful of the elements that must be included. Mindful, so making sure we include all the things that we need to. So just a reminder of the difference between the two. A bar graph we use when the information we're looking at is unrelated. So it doesn't follow on from one thing to the next. So for example, if I did a survey of colors and people's favorite colors, while blue and green and red and yellow and orange are all different colors, there's not a continuation from one into the next. So those would be separate, and we'd use a bar graph. But if I was looking at the heights of students, for example, and I made range, like sort of a range from 120 to 129 was one part, and we see how many people are that size, and the next was 130 centimeters to 139 centimeters. You can see how that information leads on. So after 129 comes 130, and so we use a histogram for that because the information kind of follows on from one to the next. It's a continuation of the same information. So that would be a histogram. Okay, I've made a video of me doing a graph, and let's watch that now. Right, so I'm just going to be showing you how to construct a graph. So I've given myself the following information. We did a survey to find out children's favorite cool drink. We only gave them 4 options, so it's the favorite out of these ones. I know lots of people might have other favorites. But we had Coke, 12 people, Fanta 6, Sprite 10, and Pepsi 8. I have no idea if that's accurate. I'm not a big drinker of fizzy cool drinks. But here we go. So here's how we need to go about it. So we've got a page. Your page will probably have lines on it. And we need to create the graph that's going to have this. So of course we're going to have a vertical line down the side. And I'm going to start off by just drawing the line. We might need to know how long that line needs to be. So let's have a look. What's our biggest value here? The highest one we've got is 12. All right, so we need to make sure there's a space for at least 12 along here. So let's see, I'm going to start down here. Yeah, if I'm going, let me go this way around so you can see the numbers correctly. Well, I've definitely got enough space here. So I'm going to, in fact, mark off every centimeter, and I'm choosing a centimeter. You could use the lines in your book, but a centimeter is quite nice if you're using blank page. Sometimes it'll be 1, as in what I'm doing now. So each of these is going to be 1. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I need to keep going. So I need to get to at least 12, and I think it's quite good practice because you don't want your graph to be a bit squishy at the top, to always go at least a little bit extra. So I needed 12, but I'm going to go as far as 13. And because this can go on forever, I'm going to put an arrow over there. So 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. And what this is this is the number of people who said each of the things. So the word you're looking for is frequency, but when we've got number of people, it's always going to be on this side. So I'm going to write number of we can call it students because it was a survey done in a class. Right, the next thing I need to do is to figure out what I'm going to do along the bottom. So first up, I'm going to definitely make this a bar graph because these are not related to each other. So Coke and Fanta are completely different things. I know they're both cool drinks, but they're not in any way related to each other. So I'm going to, I don't want to have like a really narrow one, so I've got quite a lot of space. So what I'm going to do is I need to draw a 90-degree line. Now, best if you use a set square, which is one of those triangles that you could put over here. If you don't have one, but you've got a ruler like mine, which has a straight end and starts on the very end, you could make sure that you line up the ruler over there at the end and then draw a line. Or if you've got a ruler like this, which is probably more like what you've got in a classroom, although yours will be plastic. It's not so much that it starts on the end, but that you've got measurements that are the same on both sides. And what you can do then is you can line it up so that the one on the one side touches and it touches on the other side as well. I'm going to line it up like this, and I'm going to draw it along this. In terms of how long I want, well, I've got 4 categories. Because it's a bar graph, there needs to be a space in between. So I'm going to have 1 centimeter in front before I start. And then I'm going to do 2 centimeter wide bars. So that's going to be 2 for the first one, then a gap of 1, 2 for the second one, gap of 1, 2 for the third one, a gap of 1, 2 for the fourth one, and a gap of 1, and then just an arrow on the end. Now that I've got it, I can put my measurements onto it. So I said I was leaving a gap, and I was going to have the first one, and a gap, and the second one, a gap, and the third one, a gap, and the fourth one. All right, so in each of these spaces, I'm going to put what it was. So the first one was Coke, the next one was Fanta, next one was Sprite, and the last one was Pepsi. And we were talking about types of cool drink. So take a note of the things. Remember the important things that we need to have on a graph. So first up, we've got our measurements on both of our axes, the y-axis and the x-axis. You don't need to know that, but it's good to remind you for in the future when you learn it. And then we've got number of students, a title for the axis, and type of cool drink, a title for the axis. I hope you can write a little bit straighter than me. That was deliberately skewed. But what is missing is here is a title. So I'm going to give it the title favorite cool drink. And because it's a title, it's important to underline. Depending on your teacher, you might need to give it a heading or something. I mean, a date or something, but for this, I'm just going to have it like this. Okay, so Coke was 12. So 12 is all the way up there. But now because I want my columns to be straight, I had a 1 centimeter gap down here. So I'm going to make sure I have a 1 centimeter gap over there. And then I'm going to draw the top of my bar, which was 2 centimeters wide. And now that I've got that, I'm going to use my short ruler so it's less in the way. I can join up that corner with the edge of the bar. And that corner with the edge of the bar. So that's showing me that Coke is at 12. And I've got some colors here. I decided to do Coke in purple. Maybe you shade yours. I'm not going to spend the time doing that. Might be nice to outline it. Right, and my next one, Fanta, was only 6. So 6 was along there. I've got the 1 centimeter gap. Notice I'm lining it up there. So I've got a 1 centimeter gap. It's 2 centimeters wide. And I quickly join them. I did choose orange for Fanta. Surprise, surprise. Maybe your teacher doesn't like you to use color in your maths book, I'm not sure. Sprite was 10. So I'm lining it up, making sure I've got 1 gap, 1 centimeter gap, and going 2 across the top, joining up. Pepsi I made, oh no, Sprite I made yellow because white was a bit not going to show up on here. And the final one was Pepsi, which was 8. So again, lining up over there, 1 centimeter gap, 2 centimeters wide, and down we go like that. And I said that Pepsi was light blue. Right, and in a very short time, we've got our bar graph constructed. So nice and neat with the columns, with the gaps in the columns all being nice. I've got my heading, I've got my numbers and my different labels on the axes. I've got my headings for the axes, and there's my completed bar graph. So I must just say apologies for not realizing I was leaning in front of the camera when my hair got in the way when I was doing those bars. Anyway, so that's constructing a bar graph. I've got some other information, and this one we're going to do on the computer, on this program, this whiteboard. So first up, this one is a survey of the people in my neighborhood. It's not actually a survey of the people in my neighborhood, and I just picked nice round numbers. That would be far too few people for an actual neighborhood, but we're just practicing making a bar graph or a histogram. So first up, we've got to decide if this is going to be a bar graph or a histogram. So let's have a look at what is the information we're looking at. We're looking at the ages of people. So the first one is a range of ages from 0 to 19. So that's anyone who's born and up until the age of 19. From then on, we're looking at people who are 20 to 39, 40 to 59, 60 to 79, and 80 to 99 in my neighborhood. In my imaginary neighborhood, there's no one who's 100 years or older. So you can see that when we're looking at ages, it's a continuation. So it does continue like this. So for this one, we are in fact going to use a histogram because that's the one that uses that kind of information. So let's scroll up. Oopsie. And let's put on a ruler. I think I'm going to do the outlines in blue. So first up, I need to do a vertical column over there. Let's just move this across a bit and let's make it a bit smaller. Okay, there we go. So I've got my thing over there, but let's quickly remind ourselves what are the groups. Well, there are 5 groups, and my biggest number for thinking of how long this line is 100, and I certainly am not going to be able to make this 100 high. So this is the time when we're going to use something that's not one block for one, because then we'd have a really, really long graph, and it definitely wouldn't fit into your page. In fact, it would be like almost a meter long. So we're going to have to make different groups. So I'm going to start at the bottom. Let's just see. I might need to extend my line up a bit, but I'm going to start with the ages, and I'm going to do it in groups of 10. So I've got 0, then 10, 20, 30. Remember, this is not ages, this is groups of people or number of people. 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. And these are on those lines. I don't know how well you can see them on the screen. There are lines there. 90 and 100. And because I like to go a little bit further, I'm going to just quickly make my line a tiny bit longer and put an arrow on the top so that you can see it goes on, because their numbers can always get bigger and bigger. Okay, and now I need to make a line across the bottom. And let's have a look at our numbers again. So I've got 5 groups. I need to make some spaces. So with a space and 2 centimeters for a group, or 2 blocks for a group, let's make it 1 block for a group. So 1 open, and then we've got the line. So 5 groups and 5 open. So, oh, I've got to put my ruler on. So, I think that'll be long enough. Right, and let's have a look at we've got a gap first. And then the first group is 0 to 19. Then a gap, then 20 to 39. Then a gap, and then 40 to 59. Then a gap, and 60 to 79. Oops, I need to make my line longer. We've got 80 to 99. And make my line a bit longer over there. Right, so there we have our spacing along the bottom. We need to put a title on each of them. So I did say the word for number of people, or number, was frequency, but we're going to put their number of people. And on this one, we're talking about age groups, so we're going to call it age groups. So I've given a title for each of my axes. I do need a title for my graph. So you could choose what you want it to be. I'm going to call mine ages in my hood. Hood being short for neighborhood. Oh, you can't see that. Ages in my hood. And making sure that we underline it. Okay, so I have quite an easy job now with drawing a straight line on this computer because I can just put my ruler on and it draws it automatically. So let's start off with, let's do the first age group in light blue. So for the first age group, we've got 80. So it's going to go up from 0 to 80. Oops, then across and then down. I'm not going to color these in. I don't think it's necessary. Let's do red for my second group. So my second group had 90 in it. So I'm going to go from 0 all the way up to 90. And across and then down. My next group had 100. So let's pick 100 in green. And my next group had 50. So from 0 up to 50. And my last one, let's do in yellow. And you can see there it's got 30. So we're going to go up to 30. Oops. Oh, I made a mistake with this. I've done a bar graph and not a histogram. So we need to fix that quickly because ages, histograms should touch. Right, so I hope some of you picked that up. So because this continues, we're going to have 20 over here, so 20 to 39. In fact, what we can do is because these lines meet, we can say that 0, 20, 40, 60, 80, and 100. And now we can put in our lines. Okay, so the first one can stay where it is. For the second grouping, we were looking at 90. So I'm going to use purple. It doesn't really matter. So for the second grouping, it was 90. I might color these in so you can see it a little bit better. For this third group, it was 100. For the fourth group, it was down to, so that's the 60 to 79 group. It was down to 50. And for the next one, it was down to 30. Right, so that's now my histogram. You don't need to leave the first line open. I just do find it's always nice not to be so squashed up against the axis over there. So we can just color those in quickly. Beautiful, I know. I'm sure your shading with your pencils is going to be much nicer than mine. Right, so very important that when it's information or data that carries on from one thing to the next, we make a histogram. And when it's information that is separate, like in the other video, we make a bar graph. So by separate, I mean that they're not related. So Coke and Fanta it's not like Coke, 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 and then it's Fanta. They're very different things. They're not related in that sense. So here we have our finished histogram. So I hope after you're watching me create this histogram, and after you're watching me create the bar graph, you'll be able to do the worksheet where you're going to do one of each. So what I've done in the worksheet today is I've given you two sets of information, and I've asked you to decide whether you should first make a bar graph or a histogram, and then to create that bar graph or histogram. So one has information that follows on, and one has information that is separate. I'm sure you'll be able to figure it out. So after the lesson, click on that link and do the worksheet just to practice, because practicing is what helps you to do things right. And in fact, when we learn how to do something and we think we've got it, and then we don't do it for 6 months, sometimes we need a reminder. So the more you practice, the better you are. Amazing. Okay, and if you need to email me, it's grade5@worksheetcloud.com. I'm Mr. T. It's been great having you with me, grade 5s. I look forward to seeing you again soon. Have a wonderful day. Bye.